Without my knowledge, my wife promised her son that he could run my business after he graduated from college, in an attempt to persuade him to go to college. Now that he's graduated, he's furious that I'm not giving him the business. I'm 52 years old. I got married 2 years ago after a 3-year relationship. My wife is 50. My wife has a son from a previous marriage. Let's call him Joe. He's 21 and recently graduated with a business degree. Joe and I get along, but we're not exactly best friends. We don't have a father-son relationship either. His father, my wife's ex-husband, is still involved in his life. They see each other quite often. So it's not like Joe is missing out on anything because we're not exactly close. The problem is that my wife promised her son that he could take over my business right after he graduated from college. I have a fairly successful catering business that I inherited from my father after his death. I've been running it for almost 20 years, not counting the years my dad and I ran it together before he passed away. And I have absolutely no intention of giving it up, at least not until I retire, which is a long way off. I don't even understand why my wife thought it was a good idea to promise Joe control of my business without even consulting me. We went to his graduation party last week, and later that evening he took us to dinner, and that's when the subject came up. While we were eating dessert, John started telling me that he wouldn't have to look for an internship or a job like his college friends because he already had a plan, and he smiled at me as he did. I didn't understand, of course, but I smiled too and looked at my wife for an explanation. She said nothing, and we just finished dinner and drove home because Joe was planning to spend the night with some friends at their apartment. On the way home, I decided to ask my wife what Joe had meant when he said he already had a plan. Then she confessed that she had supposedly promised Joe before he went to college that I would let him take over my business after graduation. I was a little shocked and told her that she should tell him that this wouldn't happen because he was still too young and inexperienced, and I didn't intend to hand over control to him so soon, or perhaps ever. After all, I had far more capable and deserving employees who could very well run the business. My wife started arguing with me in the car, saying I was being foolish, that she trusted Joe and was sure he could handle it if I just gave him a chance to try. I countered that with my business, which my father had started and which he had entrusted me to develop and maintain. There was no way to try. He either made it or he didn't. And in my opinion, he wasn't ready for that right now. He just graduated, and guys his age need to gain experience because they're simply not psychologically prepared for that kind of pressure. He needs to get an internship somewhere, and if he shows good results, then maybe I'll let him work under me. But he's still a long way from being able to trust him with the entire business. When I told my wife this, she completely lost her temper and started accusing me of being selfish and not thinking about Joe and his financial future. She said I wasn't acting like a father at all and was only thinking about myself, to which I replied that it was true. I'm not Joe's father and I don't need to pretend to be one for him. At that point, she got completely angry, made me stop the car, and got out to walk home. It was only a couple of blocks, so I didn't mind. I didn't go home right away myself. I stopped at a bar first because I was really upset about the argument. I thought she was being unreasonable, and I still think so. I got home around midnight and my wife was already asleep, so we didn't discuss it that evening. In the morning, when we woke up, she pretended everything was fine, and I didn't bring up the previous night's scandal either. But 2 days later, when Joe called me to ask about the business, I told him point blank that his mother hadn't even discussed the idea with me, and if she had, she would have already known I wasn't going to give it to him. So he needed to get a job, like all his friends, because what his mother had promised him wouldn't happen. At first, he thought I was joking, and it took me a long time to convince him otherwise. Now, looking back, I realized that over the past couple of years, he'd hinted more than once that he was going to take over the business. But I always laughed it off, thinking it was just him playing around. If I'd known about the promise my wife made to her son, I would have taken it seriously and nipped all that talk in the bud. When I said I wasn't going to give up the business, Joe went berserk, started yelling at me for making false promises and being selfish like his mother, and then hung up without even giving me a chance to defend myself. I was at work, so I didn't tell my wife anything right away and decided to talk to her at home that evening. When I returned, my wife was furious. She didn't even let me take off my coat and immediately started yelling. It turned out that Joe had called her right after talking to me and yelled at her for lying to him and making him think he could take over my business after graduation. My wife accused me of being responsible for everything because now Joe no longer trusts us and was going to cut off all TIs with us. I told her it wasn't my fault. I didn't promise her son the business, and I didn't make any promises to her either. She'd been lying to her son for years, and now he has the right to decide for himself what to do. If my mother had lied to me like that, I probably wouldn't want to talk to her anymore either. My wife was so angry that she stormed out of the house in tears and said she was going to her sister's. I didn't stop her. After that argument, I was in a bad mood too, and I didn't see any fault in what happened. She left, and she's been gone for 3 days now. We haven't even talked. I haven't called her, and she hasn't called me either. Complete silence on both sides. Yesterday, I thought she was calling, but it turned out to be her older sister. She only called to scold me for my behavior. She said that my wife has been crying non-stop since she left and feels like she's losing both her son and her husband. I admit, those words made me feel bad. The last thing I wanted was to make my wife cry. My sister explained that my wife lied to their son about the business because he never planned on going to college in the first place. Joe told her he wanted to join a band and try his hand at music, but my wife wanted him to get a degree. The only way she could think of was to promise him a ready-made business in the future. She didn't discuss it with me because she knew, I'd say, no, she hoped that when Joe finished school, I would see how responsible he had become and change my mind. She even intended to talk to me about it over the years, but never got around to it. She felt she had no right. After all, the business wasn't hers, and Joe wasn't my son. I told her sister that I understood my wife's motives, that she was worried about her son's future, but that still didn't justify her lying to him or to me. Then my sister added that she didn't want to interfere in our marriage, but my wife was willing to work on our relationship if I apologized for being too cruel to her and Joe. After that, she hung up, and I was left tormented by doubts. On the one hand, I want to make peace with my wife and fix things. On the other, I don't think I'm to blame. I don't understand why I should apologize if she should be the one apologizing. A whole day has passed since the call, and I still haven't decided what to do. So, I'm an asshole for telling my stepson straight out that I wasn't going to give him my business after my wife promised him without my knowledge. Update 1, I decided not to apologize to my wife. After reading the comments here, I realized I really wasn't to blame. If my wife wanted to convince her son to go to college, there were plenty of smarter and more effective ways to do it than just blatantly lie to him about something she knew would never happen. And even then, she had a chance to make things right by talking to me at least once over the years. But she didn't and decided to spill the beans after he graduated. So now, if she wants to save our marriage, she'll have to swallow her pride and apologize to me. It's been almost a week since she left, and I still haven't heard from her. I have no idea what's going on in her head or what she plans to do next. But one thing is clear, I'm not going to go to her again and beg for forgiveness like I did before. She created this mess herself, and she's the one who has to clean it up. Thank you all for your advice and help. You've really helped me clear my head a bit, because she always does the same thing. She screws up, and then I'm the one running after her, just so we can be together. It used to work, but this time I firmly told myself, enough. I can't always be the one chasing after her and putting all my efforts into making our marriage work. Update 2. It's been almost 2 weeks since my wife left, and we haven't spoken in all this time. Today I almost contacted a lawyer because I was sure she wouldn't come back anytime soon, but luckily she came back this afternoon. She hasn't said much so far, but she apologized for her behavior. For me, that's enough for now. I don't know what will happen with her relationship with her son. Judging by how sad she is, I think she never resolved the conflict with him. To be honest, I'm not even sure you can call it a conflict. She lied to her son, and now that the truth has come out, he refuses to communicate with her. It's unpleasant to say this, but I don't think he is very wrong in this situation. My wife apologized to me, but as he said, she's still really depressed and doesn't talk to me like she used to. The house is quiet and tense. Even though she's back, Joe has blocked me. I don't know if he's blocked his mother too, but if so, that explains a lot. She can't even get through to him right now. not even to apologize. If she asks for advice, I'll probably tell her to try contacting one of his friends to pass on a message. It'll be a little awkward for him, but at least it will give him a chance to talk. I don't even know what his father thinks about all this. My wife hasn't discussed it with me yet. I'm curious myself what people will say about her plan to force Joe to go to college. Technically, it worked. Joe graduated and got his degree, but now he doesn't even want to talk to her. Basically, everything has turned against her. And it's sad because I know how much she loves her son and how important it was to her that he get an education. But now everything has turned into complete chaos, and it's her fault. She has no one but herself. Update 3. It's been 2 days since my wife came home. She's been acting strange and silent all this time, but today we finally talked about everything that's happened since Joe's graduation. She apologized again for promising him the business without even asking me if I was okay with it. I said it was okay. I thought that would be the end of the conversation, but instead, she burst into tears right in the middle of our conversation, and it caught me off guard. As soon as she started crying, I hugged her and tried to console her, but it was impossible to console her. She sobbed and whimpered for almost an hour straight. The whole time she kept muttering that she was terribly sorry, that she had disappointed the whole family, that she wanted to be a better wife and mother. But she hadn't been able to do either. It was alarming to see how badly she had broken down. I felt terrible for not even checking on her when she was staying with her sister. After all, she was clearly I was going through a tough time too. Yes, it was her fault, but she was still my wife, and I had to at least try to make her feel better. When she finally calmed down after almost an hour, I asked her what I could do to make her feel better. She said that what she wanted most now was to talk to Joe and fix their relationship. But as I expected, he had blocked her everywhere and she didn't have his friends' numbers. She tried to reach him through her ex-husband's father, but he too said that Joe didn't want to talk to her and refused to help, saying it was her fault and that she should find a way to reconcile on her own. Then I told my wife that I would find a way to contact Joe and immediately got to work. I did a little searching through social media and found out who his closest friends were. I remembered one guy with whom Joe was especially close and somehow found his account. When I found his friend, I sent him a message, hoping that he would see it and help me contact Joe. I explained everything that had happened and literally begged him to call Joe and connect us. An hour later, my wife received a call from an unfamiliar number and we were sure it was Joe's friend. We answered, and luckily it was Joe himself on the line. I didn't hear the entire conversation, only my wife's comments. She apologized over and over again, and I even felt sorry for her because I knew how much she loved Joe. They argued for quite a long time. My wife explained why she did what she did. She assured him that he would thank her for having a diploma. She even said that if she had to, she would do the same thing again, just to force him to go to college. Gradually, she began to get excited. I could see that the conversation was not going as she had planned. Her face turned red again. Blotches appeared on her neck. I tried to persuade her to hang up and continue later, but they did not stop the conversation. It soon turned into a full-blown argument, with Joe yelling and my wife using harsh words. I had never heard my wife use that tone of voice with anyone before, much less her own son. She said some horrible things to him and ended the conversation by saying he was just like his father. When the call ended, she was nearly hysterical and spent the next 15 minutes ranting about how disgusting her son was. I let her vent. She needed to get that negativity out. When she calmed down, I asked her what exactly Joe had said. She admitted that he had accused her of lying, to which she agreed and apologized, but then he told her she was a terrible mother and that she had ruined his life by forcing him to waste years in college instead of pursuing his dream of becoming a musician. He said that she had ruined his dream and that he would never want to talk to her again because she was the most selfish and heartless person he knew. At that moment, his wife completely lost it because everything she had done was for his future. She knew that he would never become a musician. As harsh as it may sound, he was simply not very talented. He even had problems with notes. Most of his friends from the school band had long since moved on to other things, and he alone continued to chase an impossible dream. It was exactly the same story with her ex-husband. She discouraged him from starting a new business while the previous one was falling apart, and he accused her of not supporting him. Because of this, They began to have constant fights and the marriage fell apart. This is what she meant when she told Joe that he was just like his father. My wife admitted to me that she had always tried to take care of her son and keep him from making mistakes that could ruin his future, but now she realized that there was no point in that. He is so blinded by his own illusions that he is unable to distinguish good from bad. She said that if her son now wants to see her as a villain, so be it, she will not try to fix everything anymore. She is tired of being blamed for all the failures, both her sons and her ex-husband's. This was a very difficult day for my wife emotionally, but I am glad that at least an attempt was made to improve the relationship, even if everything went awry. She made a mistake, then tried to fix everything. If her son did not appreciate it, then that is his problem. After that, she calmed down noticeably and we had a quiet dinner. She did not mention either Joe or her ex-husband anymore. She is sleeping now, and I really hope that tomorrow she will feel better. Update 4. Hello everyone. Almost a week has passed since my wife stopped communicating with our son, and today her ex-husband called her. He said that Joe wanted to talk to her and that she should come to their house. Only one, because it was a family matter and I am not a family member, so I was told to stay away. But my wife was firm. She said that she would only come with me. Otherwise, she would not come at all because she was not going to deal with their nonsense alone. In the end, the ex-husband agreed to let me in, but on the condition that I would not interfere in the conversation. For me, this was not a problem because I did not want to communicate with either my wife's ex-husband or Doma. When we arrived, they looked as if they were ready to drag her to court. Their serious faces clearly wanted to put pressure on the wife, but this does not work on her. We sat down in the living room and Joe immediately said, since his mother made him go to college and spend 3 years doing something he has no interest in, now she has to fulfill her promise and make me give him the business. I know I said I wouldn't interfere, but I couldn't resist asking them if they were crazy because that would never happen. Not now, not later, even if he was ready, because by this point I was just disappointed in him as a person. He's not my son, and I don't owe him anything. And I said it right to his face. Then his father exploded and said that I had no right to interfere and should shut up. It really hurt me because we were talking about my catering business. So naturally, I had every right to participate in the conversation. We had a little argument with my wife's ex-husband, but she stopped me and I realized it wasn't worth it. I just gave him a dirty look and shut up. Joe continued to insist that my mother talk to me and make me hand over the business to him, or he would cut her out of his life completely. I expected my wife to withdraw a little, but she didn't hesitate, and I was very proud of her. She told Joe that she wasn't going to do that, and if he didn't want to be grateful to her for helping him secure his future, that was his problem. But he had no right to make demands. She apologized for lying, but that was all. She didn't owe him anything more. Because, after all, she was only trying to take care of him. If he doesn't appreciate it, he should really break up with her. Then her ex-husband threatened to sue her if she didn't keep her promise. She laughed in his face and asked if there was even a single lawyer who would take his case, knowing they had no contract or written agreement about her promise. He was completely confused and demanded that we leave his house immediately. We did so. As he was getting into the car, Johnny missed an opportunity to yell at his mother and say nasty things to her, but we ignored them and quickly left. We didn't want to waste any more time or energy on them. Now we're home and hoping that the situation with her son is finally over and that we won't have to see them again. Because today's conversation was a complete waste of nerves and energy. Well, that's all. I think it's a rather contradictory story. I think many in the comments will say that the mother did the right thing, that she should have talked some sense into her son and forced him to study. But I personally think she probably did the wrong thing because, well, if a person doesn't want to really work on themselves, then what can you do? So he graduated from that scam. So what? This will actually give him some kind of path in life. He'll actually be looking for a job now. Honestly, I find that hard to believe, considering the fights he's having with his mother right now. On the other hand, who knows? Maybe it really will get him somewhere. I immediately thought of Lidja Hillbillis' film, and I really liked the moment when the main character, J.D. Vance, tells his grandmother, "I hate you," just when his grandmother was trying to talk some sense into him and force him to study. And his grandmother said, "I don't need you to love me. The main thing is for you to become a person or something." She told him. So maybe my mother did something like that here too. And yes, it's sad that the relationship broke up, but maybe it's not forever. and it will really give him something. Who knows? But personally, I wouldn't do that. I would give him the opportunity to try to realize himself somehow. I don't know what would have come of it, but there's no guarantee that after finishing this scam, he'll do something. They say he didn't even know anything and all that. He had no talent. Well, damn. It's all such nonsense, really. My uncle, I remember, also said the same about me. Oh, that thing about him playing something there. It's all nonsense. On the guitar. It's not serious at all. Well, nevertheless, of course, I didn't become a musician, but I raised 2 channels. And as it seems to me, all these creative components, they somehow played well in my life. Although, who knows, maybe I should have gone into some kind of business. But it seems to me, it's not my thing. Being a businessman requires a certain mindset, the ability to interact with people. I'm not particularly good at that, and my father is absolutely right, of course. Putting some greenhorn in charge of a business is just ridiculous. Of course, someone needs some experience, some kind of background. Even not every experienced employee is ready to run a business. It takes a certain talent and inclination. What do you think? I look forward to your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for listening to this story to the end. Watch our previous videos, which you can see here. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel if for some reason you haven't already. And of course, good luck to you.